Hello everyone and welcome back to Ivy Astrology. This video is dedicated entirely to the total lunar eclipse, the blood moon in Virgo, happening on March 3rd, 2026. This is a big one, so I wanted to give it its own video rather than just try to squeeze it in one of our monthly or weekly forecasts. If you're looking for the full March week by week breakdowns, the sign by sign interpretations, the other major transits, all of that, those videos are linked in the description below. Go check them out after this one. But right now, we're going deep on this eclipse because it deserves the full spotlight. So let's talk about what's happening. On March 3rd, we get a total lunar eclipse at 12 degrees and 41 minutes of Virgo. This is a blood moon. The moon turns that deep, eerie red as the Earth's shadow completely covers it. And this isn't just any eclipse. This is the last total lunar eclipse until December 31st, 2028. So whatever this eclipse is releasing from your life, it's a final chapter, a closing of the book. This eclipse falls on the South Node in Virgo, which means it's about karmic release, letting go. The South Node represents what we've outgrown, the patterns, the habits, the ways of being that served us once, but are now holding us back, so no longer serving us. In Virgo, that means perfectionism, overanalysis, anxiety, service burnout, and that relentless inner critic telling you it's never good enough. The North Node in Pisces is calling us toward faith, surrender, creative flow, and spiritual connection. The eclipse is clearing the path, removing what blocks you from trusting the process. Now, here's what most astrologers won't tell you in enough detail. This eclipse doesn't just affect Virgo and Pisces. If you have any planet, your ascendant, your midheaven, or your lunar nodes between 8 and 18 degrees of Virgo, Pisces, Gemini, Sagittarius, Taurus, Capricorn, Cancer, or Scorpio, this eclipse is speaking directly to your chart. The closer your placement is to 12 to 13 degrees, the more powerful and unavoidable the effects. I break all of this down in the video. The exact degree ranges, which aspects are activated, what it means depending on which planet is being hit, and the sign by sign breakdown for all 12 rising sun or moon signs. And there is something really fascinating I want to highlight. Exactly 19 years ago, March 3rd, 2007, there was a total lunar eclipse at almost the exact same degree, 12 degrees and 50 minutes. Virgo, same date, same degree. This is called a Metonic cycle return. And it means whatever was happening in your life in early March 2007 is directly connected to what this eclipse is completing now. Think back. Where were you? What were you going through? That story, it's reaching its final chapter. So I'll go through all 12 signs in this video, so stick around for yours. And if you want to know exactly whether this eclipse is hitting your personal chart, which specific natal planets are being activated, and what that means for you individually, head over to ivyastrology.com. The personal cosmic activation calendar shows you precisely which of your planets, natal planets, are aspected during this eclipse window. And the daily transits on the home page will help you track when the eclipse degrees gets activated in the weeks and months ahead. All the links are in the description below, along with the weekly March forecast videos. Now, let's dive in. All right, so March 3rd, 2026, lunar eclipse in Virgo, at 12 degrees and 41 minutes. This doesn't affect Virgo and Pisces only. It sends shockwaves across the entire zodiac through geometric aspects. If you have any natal planets, your ascendant, midheaven, or lunar nodes near these degrees, this eclipse is speaking directly to your natal chart. The closer the degree, the more powerful and unavoidable the effects. So, let me give you some activation zones by aspect for this eclipse. For example, if you are Virgo or Pisces, anywhere between 8 and 18 degrees, so I'm using a 5-degree orb, but obviously the closer you are to 13 degrees, the more the impact that you will feel. So if you're a Virgo or Pisces, 8 to 18 degrees is going to be a conjunction or an opposition to your sign. You are going to be feeling a direct hit of this eclipse. Maximum intensity, events, revelations, endings. This is the main axis of the eclipse. Unavoidable transformation. If you are a Gemini or a Sagittarius, between 8 and 18 degrees, Sun, Moon, or Rising, this eclipse is squaring your sign. This for you will be challenging. Tension, friction, forced change. Uncomfortable, but catalytic. The pressure creates diamonds. Keep that in mind. Now, if you are a Taurus or a Capricorn, between 8 and 18 degrees, this eclipse is actually making a trine to your sign. So you will be feeling a flowing support. Release that feels organic and natural. Gifts arrive without force. Grace and letting go. And if you're a Cancer or Scorpio, 8 to 18 degrees, this eclipse is making a sextile to your sign. This is an opportunistic angle. Doors open if you act. Opportunities appear, but require initiative to claim them. Now, obviously, the 0 to 2 degrees orb is the most intense one. So if you have planets between 18 and 15 degrees of the activated signs that I just mentioned before, you will see this feel this extremely powerful. So there is going to be a very direct hit. Unmissable life events. This is destiny level activation. And for those for a bigger orb, so 2 to 5 degree orb, so for 8 to 11 degrees and 15 to 18 degrees of the activated signs, you will still feel a strong impact. Not as powerful as 11 to 15 degrees, but still quite strong. Clearly felt, significant shifts. You will notice this eclipse working in your life. Now, how to check if this eclipse hits your chart? Well, pull up your natal birth chart, and you can find that on my Astrology site as well. It's a free birth chart. You need to know your exact birth time for the ascendant and midheaven. Look for any planet, the ascendant, midheaven, or north and south nodes. If you have any planets at between 8 to 18 degrees of Virgo, Pisces, Gemini, Sagittarius, Taurus, Capricorn, Cancer, or Scorpio. If you find a placement in that range, this eclipse is activating that part of your chart. The closer to 12, 13 degrees, the more powerful the activation. But what natal planet is being hit? What does that matter? How does that matter? So the planet or point, the eclipse aspects, determines the nature of the transformation. So if it is your natal sun that it's activating this degree, then it is about identity crisis and rebirth for you. Who you are is being restructured at the deepest level. If it is your natal moon at these degrees, at any of the signs that I've mentioned, then it is your emotional upheaval and healing that is being affected. Deep feelings will surface now, and old wounds will finally close. If it's your natal Mercury in those degrees of those signs, communication breakthroughs, old thought patterns dissolve, new mental clarity emerges. If it is your natal Venus, relationships and value shifts will be felt now. What you love, who you love, and what you find beautiful transforms. If it is your natal Mars, action and anger patterns change. New courage emerges. How you fight and what you fight for evolves. If it is your natal Jupiter in between those degrees of those signs, beliefs and opportunities shift. Your philosophy of life undergoes a major upgrade. If it is your natal Saturn, structural changes will be felt. Responsibilities will be reorganized. Old limitations will dissolve and new commitments will form. If it is your natal Uranus, sudden awakening, unexpected freedom will be felt. Lightning bolt revelations that change everything instantly. If it is your natal Neptune, then you can feel a spiritual dissolution and renewal. Illusions will shatter, and so that authentic faith can emerge. If it is your natal planet, those degrees of those signs, you will feel deep transformation. Power dynamics shift permanently. What has been buried comes to life. And if it's your ascendant or midheaven, visible life changes in appearance, reputation, or career. Others can see this transformation happening to you. Right, now, before we go into the sign by sign, I just want to mention I've already mentioned in the introduction part that this degree, 13 degrees Virgo, 12, 13 degrees, was activated before during the March 3rd, 2007 Total Lunar Eclipse in Virgo. So if you think back to February or April 2007 and think about where you were living, what job did you have, who were your closest relationships, what were you struggling with, those themes are going to come back. Because, as I mentioned, the eclipse carry degree memory. There are sensitive points in the zodiac that get reactivated by future transits, building a story over years and decades. So the degree 12, 13 degrees Virgo has been activated by other major planetary transits before, and each activation added a chapter to the same story. Understanding what happened in those earlier activations revealed the deeper narrative for this 2026 eclipse that is completing. So what are the major transits through 12, 13 degrees Virgo were there that you can think back? Well, we mentioned the March 3rd, 2007 Total Lunar Eclipse, obviously, the starting point, the original seed eclipse. Whatever began or culminated in your life at this time is directly linked to this 2026 eclipse. But then also in late 2008, early 2009, Saturn was transiting 12, 13 degrees of Virgo. So there's another activation there that has happened for those 13 degrees. The significance of that is basically structural testing was done during that global financial crisis, if you remember. So at that point, Saturn demanded accountability, discipline, and restructuring at this degree. So whatever the 2007 eclipse began, Saturn tested and hardened. And then early 2015 and then early 2016, it was Jupiter transiting the 12-13 degrees in Virgo. That was about expansion, opportunities, and lucky breaks in health, work, and daily life. Jupiter blessed and expanded whatever had survived Saturn's test, offering growth and optimism at this degree. So the timeline of 12 to 13 degrees Virgo in your life is 2007, eclipse planted the seed. 2008, 2009, Saturn tested and structured it. 2015, 2016, Jupiter expanded it. 2026, eclipse completes and releases it. You are living the final act of a story nearly 2 decades in the making. If we are to look at future activations, so what this means, whenever a transiting planet crosses 12, 13 degrees of the activated signs of Virgo, Pisces, and most importantly, but also by aspect, we have Gemini, Sagittarius, Taurus, Capricorn, Cancer, and Scorpio. The eclipse themes are reactivated. So faster planets like the Moon and Sun create brief but noticeable echoes, but slower planets create major turning points that unfold over weeks or months. So one key future trigger that I want to highlight for all of you is Uranus and Gemini will be squaring this eclipse point in 2028 and 2029. It's a long time. Just wanted to highlight that. But during this year's 2028, 2029, when Uranus is going to be at these 12, 13 degrees, Gemini will form an exact square. It will reactivate the release themes of March 2026 with Uranus signature energy, sudden change, liberation, and breakthrough. We're going to go now through the sign by sign interpretations. Just remember, visit Ivy Astrology to check your personal activation and see if this eclipse is hitting your chart directly. So for you, Aries, the eclipse falls into your 6th house of work, health, daily routines, and service. So what's being released for you? Well, it is about perfectionist work habits, health anxiety, overstructured routines, the belief that your worth depends on productivity. All this is being released. So if you're an Aries rising, a job, health routine, or daily habit that's been draining you reaches its breaking point. The eclipse forces you to release unhealthy work patterns, overworking, people pleasing at the office, or obsessing over health metrics instead of actually living. For example, you finally quit the job that's been making you sick with stress, or you put a stop to it, or you stop the restrictive diet that was creating more anxiety than health. You surrender control of your daily routine and discover that flexibility feels better than rigidity. If you are Aries Sun, your identity detaches from being the productive one or the one who has it all together. You release the need to be perfect in your work and health. And if you're an Aries Moon, emotional release around work stress and health worries. You stop using busyness as a way to avoid feelings and let yourself rest without guilt. Now, with a total lunar eclipse at 12 degrees Virgo, 13 degrees Virgo, landing in your 6th house of work, health, and daily routines, your ruling planet Mars determines how deeply this release penetrates your life. So, If your natal Mars is at 8 to 18 degrees of any mutable sign like Virgo, Pisces, Gemini, or Sagittarius, the sixth house release is deeply tied to your action and energy patterns, work burnout, health habits driven by aggression or avoidance, and exercise routines that no longer serve your evolving self are all up for a powerful purge. Mars squares and oppositions from the eclipse force you to confront how you've been pushing, fighting, or forcing your way through daily life and what needs to stop. If your natal Mars is instead at 8 to 18 degrees of Earth or water signs like Taurus, Capricorn, Cancer, or Scorpio, the release flows more naturally through supportive trines and sextiles. So changes to your daily routines, work habits, and health practices feel less like a crisis and more like an organic evolution that your body and schedule have been quietly asking for. Check the personal cosmic activation calendar on Ivy Astrology to see your exact personal activation points for this eclipse. For you, Taurus, the eclipse is in your fifth house of creativity, romance, children, self-expression, and joy. So, what's being released? Well, perfectionism in creative expression, over analyzing romance instead of feeling it, critical approach to children, or fun. So if you're a Taurus rising, a creative project, a romantic situation, or approach to joy reaches a culmination. You release the need for creative perfection. The painting doesn't need to be museum worthy to be meaningful. Romance doesn't need to check every box to be worth pursuing. So for example, you can stop editing your novel endlessly and finally share it, imperfect and alive. Or you end the romance where you've been criticizing your partner or yourself against an impossible standard. If you're a Taurus sun, your identity releases the need for creative validation. You create for joy, not for approval. And if you're a Taurus moon, your emotional release around self-expression fears. You stop judging your creative impulses and let yourself play, dance, paint, or love without inner criticism. Now, with this total lunar eclipse, 12 degrees Virgo, illuminating your fifth house of creativity, romance, and self-expression, your ruling planet, Venus, holds the key to how this release unfolds. So if your natal Venus, it's at anywhere between 8 to 18 degrees of any mutable sign, like Virgo, Pisces, Gemini, or Sagittarius, the fifth house, creative and romantic release, is tied to your core values and your sense of beauty. So relationships or creative projects that no longer align with what you truly find beautiful, pleasurable, or worthy of your devotion are being eclipsed out of your life. Venus, under stress from this eclipse, asks you to honestly evaluate what you've been pouring love and creative energy into and whether it still deserves that investment. If your natal Venus is at 8 to 18 degrees of Earth or water signs like Taurus, Capricorn, Cancer, or Scorpio, the release of old creative blocks or outdated romantic patterns feels organic and natural, like finally letting go of a painting style that no longer excites you, or allowing a relationship dynamic to evolve into something deeper and more authentic. Check the personal cosmic activation calendar on Ivy Astrology to see your exact personal activation points for this eclipse. For Geminis, the eclipse happens in your fourth house of home, family, roots, emotional foundation. So what's being released? Well, perfectionist expectations of family, overanalyzing family dynamics, critical inner parent, or anxious attachments to home security. So if you're a Gemini rising, family patterns, living situations, or emotional foundations reach a breaking point. You release the need for a perfect family or home life. You stop trying to fix family members and accept them, or accept that some family dynamics need to end. For example, you stop cleaning obsessively to cope with anxiety and let your home to be lived in and warm. Or you release a family obligation that's been draining you for years. If you're a Gemini sun, your identity releases its roots in family expectations. You define home on your own terms. If you're a Gemini moon, deep emotional release around family wounds. The inner critic that sounds like a parent finally quiets. You mother yourself with compassion instead of criticism. With the total lunar eclipse at 12 degrees Virgo, activating your fourth house of home, family, and emotional foundations, your ruling planet Mercury is central to how this release reshapes your most private world. The eclipse at 12 degrees for 41 minutes Virgo squares Gemini, creating friction, tension, and ultimately powerful catalytic energy for transformation at home and within family dynamics. You're a mutable sign, so you're being put under alert here. Gemini risings with your ascendant between 8 to 18 degrees are receiving the square from this eclipse to your very identity point. This is challenging, friction-filled aspect, but it is deeply catalytic for home and family transformation. The square demands action. It won't let you sit comfortably in old domestic patterns or family roles that have outgrown you. Expect tension between who you are becoming and the home or family structures you've built around an older version of yourself. So if you're an natal Mercury, it's at between 8 and 18 degrees of any mutable signs, like Virgo, Pisces, Gemini, or Sagittarius. You're experiencing a double impact. Your communication planet and chart ruler is being directly stressed by the eclipse while in a home and family context. So this can manifest as difficult but necessary conversations with family members, decisions about living situations that force you to speak hard truths, or a fundamental shift in how you think and communicate about what home means to you. The mental restlessness is real, but it's driving you toward a more authentic foundation. So go and check the personal activation calendars on IV Astrology to see your exact personal activation points for this eclipse. For Cancer, the eclipse is happening in your third house of communication, learning, siblings, and local environment. So what's being released? Overthinking communication, perfectionist writing, speaking habits, critical sibling dynamics, and anxiety about learning. If you're a Cancer rising, Communication patterns, sibling relationships, or learning approaches reach a turning point. You release the need to say everything perfectly. You stop editing yourself before speaking and trust that authenticity matters more than precision. For example, you stop rewriting every email 10 times and just send it. Or you have a breakthrough conversation with a sibling where you stop analyzing what's right and just connect heart to heart. If you're a Cancer sun, your identity releases intellectual perfectionism. You communicate from intuition, not just analysis. And for Cancer moon, there is an emotional release around communication anxiety. You stop worrying about being misunderstood and speak your truth. So, with the total lunar eclipse at 12 degrees 41 minutes Virgo, illuminating your third house of communication, learning, and local environment, this eclipse carries an especially personal resonance to you because your ruling planet, the moon, and the moon is the eclipsed body. So Cancer risings feel every lunar eclipse with particular emotional depth, but this one asks you to release old communication patterns, outdated ways of thinking, and neighborhood or sibling dynamics that have run their course. If your natal moon is at 8 to 18 degrees of any mutable sign, like Virgo, Pisces, Gemini, or Sagittarius, the third house communication release hits your deepest emotional patterns. The way you process information, the stories you tell yourself, the conversations you've been avoiding, all of it is being pulled to the surface by an eclipse that speaks directly to your emotional core. This can feel overwhelming because the moon governs your instinctive responses and the eclipse is asking those instincts to evolve. But if your natal moon is at 8 to 18 degrees of birth or water signs like Taurus, Capricorn, Cancer, or Scorpio, the emotional release around communication happens with more gentleness and flow. Insights arrive like quiet revelations rather than jarring disruptions, and letting go of old mental habits feels more like shedding a skin that you've already outgrown. Check the personal activation calendars on Ivy Astrology to see your exact personal activation points for this eclipse. For Leos, the eclipse happens in your second house of money, values, self-worth, and resources. So what's being released for you? Well, perfectionist relationship with money, anxious financial habits, self-worth tied to productivity or material possessions. So if you're a Leo rising, financial habits, income sources, or self-worth patterns reach a culmination. You release the anxiety of needing every penny accounted for or the belief that you're only valuable when you're earning. With Uranus in your 10th house, adding surprises, a career shift may alter your income in unexpected ways. For example, you can stop budgeting obsessively and learn to trust that abundance flows when you're aligned with your purpose. Or you leave a high-paying but soul-crushing job because your values have shifted. If you're a Leo sun, your identity releases the equation of net worth equals self-worth. You discover that what truly makes you valuable. And if you're a Leo moon, there is an emotional release around financial anxiety. You stop using money as emotional security and find security within. with this total lunar eclipse at 12 degrees 41 minutes Virgo landing in your second house of money, values, and self-worth. Your ruling planet, the sun, makes this eclipse axis deeply personal because the sun is the other body in this opposition, sitting at 12 degrees 41 minutes Pisces. Here in your 8th house. So Leo risings feel both ends of the eclipse axis. The release of old financial patterns and self-worth stories in your second house, and the pull toward deeper shared resources, intimacy, and transformation in your 8th house. You're not just letting go of how you earn or spend, you're renegotiating your entire relationship with value, both material and spiritual. If your natal sun is at anywhere between 8 to 18 degrees of any mutable sign, like Virgo, Pisces, Gemini, or Sagittarius, the second house values and money release becomes an identity level event. This isn't just about your bank account. It's about who you are in relationship to what you own, earn, and value. Your sense of self is being restructured through a financial or value lens. If your natal sun is at between 8 to 18 degrees of earth or water signs like Taurus, Capricorn, Cancer, or Scorpio, financial shifts and evolving values are supported by natural talent and emerging opportunity. Doors open as old ones close, and your innate gifts find new avenues for generating both income and meaning. So go and check the personal activation calendars on Ivy Astrology to see your exact personal activation points for this eclipse. Virgos. This eclipse falls in your first house, your identity, self, body, appearance. This is personal to you. So what's being released? Your entire perfectionist identity, the version of you that criticizes every flaw, apologizes for existing, and believes not good enough it's a personality trait. So if you're a Virgo rising, this eclipse is happening to you in the most personal house of the chart. The old version of you is dying during this blood moon. The self-critical, anxious, perfectionist identity that has defined you is being eclipsed. This is not comfortable. It feels like an identity crisis. But what emerges is a you who operates from faith instead of fear, flow instead of control, compassion instead of criticism. For example, you look in the mirror and instead of cataloging flaws, you see a human being worthy of love. You stop apologizing for taking up space. You release the need to be useful, to be worthy of love. If you're a Virgo sun, your core identity undergoes a total reset. Who you are is changing. Not who you pretend to be, but who you fundamentally know yourself to be. And if you're a Virgo moon, the deepest emotional release of your life. The anxious inner voice that has narrated your existence goes quiet. In the silence, you hear your soul for the first time. So, the total lunar eclipse at 12 degrees 41 minutes Virgo falls in your first house of identity, self-image, and personal direction. Your ruling planet is Mercury, and this is the most personally impactful eclipse placement of all 12 signs. The blood moon is rising in your sign, illuminating who you have been and making space for you for who you are becoming. Your mutable sign, the most personal. Virgo risings with your ascendant between 8 to 18 degrees are receiving a direct conjunction from this blood moon eclipse to your very identity point. This is the most powerful personal activation possible in astrology. The old version of you is literally being eclipsed. Your self-image, your physical appearance, how others perceive you, and the direction of your personal path are all undergoing profound transformation. If your rising degree is between 11 to 15 degrees Virgo, this is a once-in-a-lifetime identity transformation. The tighter the conjunction, the more total the metamorphosis. You may look back on this eclipse as the moment everything changed. When you stopped being who you thought you had to be and started becoming who you actually are. Now, back to Mercury. If your natal Mercury, your chart ruler, is also at 8 to 18 degrees of a mutable sign like Virgo, Pisces, Gemini, or Sagittarius, the effect is amplified even further. Your mind, your communication style, and your self-concept all undergo profound change simultaneously. The way you think, speak, analyze, and present yourself to the world is being rewired at the deepest level. This double activation means the eclipse isn't just changing how you see yourself, it's changing how your mind works, how you process reality, and how you articulate your truth. Embrace the disorientation. What feels like confusion, it's actually recalibration. So go and check the personal activation calendars on Ivy Astrology to see your exact personal activation points for this eclipse. Libras, this eclipse is in your 12th house of spirituality, subconscious, hidden matters, and endings. What's being released for you? Well, subconscious perfectionism, hidden self-criticism, spiritual anxiety, over-analyzing dreams and intuitions instead of trusting them. If you are Libra rising, subconscious patterns, hidden fears, and spiritual blocks reach a culmination. You release the invisible perfectionism that's been running your life from behind the scenes, the voice that whispers you're not spiritual enough or you're not doing enough inner work. For example, you stop meditating as a performance and start meditating as a surrender. You release a hidden addiction or coping mechanism that's been keeping you numb. Dreams reveal and heal what your conscious mind has been avoiding. If you're a Libra sun, your identity releases its need to appear spiritually perfect. You embrace messy, real human spirituality. And if you're a Libra moon, there is an emotional purging from the deepest layers. What surfaces may surprise you. Old grief, forgotten fears, ancestral patterns. Let it all go. As a Libra rising, this eclipse falls in your 12th house of spirituality, subconscious, and hidden matters. Your ruling planet is Venus, and her placement in your natal chart determines how deeply this eclipse reaches into your inner world. So if your natal Venus is at 8 to 18 degrees of any mutable sign, like Virgo, Pisces, Gemini, or Sagittarius, the 12th house spiritual release transforms your relationship patterns at the deepest subconscious level. hidden expectations about love, buried resentments, or spiritual ideals about partnership that no longer serve you are being pulled to the surface and dissolved. This is Venus work happening beneath the level of conscious awareness, clearing out old love programming you didn't even know was running. If your natal Venus is at 8 to 18 degrees of Taurus, Capricorn, Cancer, or Scorpio, the spiritual release flows more naturally, bringing gentle insights through dreams, meditation, and quiet moments of reflection rather than dramatic upheaval. Go and check the personal activation calendars on Ivy Astrology to see your exact personal activation points for this eclipse. Scorpios, this eclipse is in your 11th house of friendships, community, future vision, and groups. So what's being released for you? Perfectionist expectations of friendships, critical judgment of communities, over analyzing social dynamics, anxiety about the future. If you're a Scorpio rising, friendships, community involvement, or future goals reach a turning point. You release friends who drain you, communities that demand perfection, or future visions that are based on should rather than want. For example, you leave a professional organization that values credentials over authenticity. Or you release a friendship where you've been the constant fixer-helper, depleting yourself to serve others' problems. If you're a Scorpio sun, your identity releases its investment in social approval. You pursue your future, not the one your peer group expects. If you're a Scorpio moon, then this is about emotional release around belonging. You stop trying to fit into your groups and trust that your tribe will find you when you're authentic. So, as a Scorpio rising, this eclipse falls in your 11th house of friendship, community, groups, and future vision. Your ruling planets are Mars in the traditional way and Pluto in the modern way. And their natal placements determine how this eclipse reshapes your social world. So if your natal Pluto is at 8 to 18 degrees of any mutable sign, like Virgo, Pisces, Gemini, or Sagittarius, the 11th house community release, it's a deep power transformation, outgrown group dynamics, toxic friendships, or future visions that were rooted in control rather than genuine connection are being exposed and purged. This is Pluto doing what Pluto does best, destroying what's already dead so something real can grow. If your natal Mars is at 8 to 18 degrees of Earth or water signs like Taurus, Capricorn, Cancer, or Scorpio, action around friendship and community changes feels supported and organic. You have the energy and drive to make moves in your social sphere without forcing or fighting. Go and check the personal activation calendars on Ivy Astrology to see your exact personal activation points for this eclipse. Now, Sagittarius. The eclipse for you is in your 10th house of career, public life, reputation, calling. What's being released for you? Well, perfectionist career standards, over-analyzing professional moves, anxiety about public reputation, the need to be the best at everything you do. So if you're a Sagittarius rising, career, public reputation, or professional direction reaches a culmination, you release the job, the role or professional identity that requires you to be perfect. You stop performing competence and start being authentic in your professional life. For example, you step down from a prestigious position that's been crushing your spirit, or your public reputation shifts as people see the real you, not the creative professional image, and you discover that authenticity attracts better opportunities than perfection ever did. If you're a Sagittarius sun, your identity releases career-based self-worth. You discover your calling isn't about climbing, it's about alignment. If you're a Sagittarius moon, this is about emotional release around professional anxiety. You stop losing sleep over work and find emotional nourishment outside of achievement. Now, again, as a Sagittarius rising, this eclipse falls in your 10th house of career, public reputation, life direction. So this eclipse at 12 degrees 41 minutes Virgo squares Sagittarius. This is not a gentle nudge. It's a forceful push. Your ruling planet is Jupiter, and his natal planet's placements determines whether this square cracks you open or blows the door off the hinges. You're a mutable sign, so Sagittarius risings with an ascendant between 8 to 18 degrees are receiving a square from this eclipse to your very identity point. This is challenging, friction-filled, but catalytic. This square demands career change, not gently, but through tension and forced decision-making. The comfortable path you've been walking, the eclipse is putting a wall across it. You don't get to keep going in that direction without confronting what isn't working. Now, if your natal Jupiter is at 8 to 18 degrees of any mutable sign, Virgo, Pisces, Gemini, or Sagittarius, the friction is amplified. Your beliefs about success, your philosophical approach to career, your sense of purpose are all under pressure simultaneously. The square won't let you stay comfortable in a career that no longer aligns with your truth. This is the eclipse pushing you off the cliff so you discover you can fly. Go and check the personal cosmic activation calendar on Ivy Astrology to see what is your exact personal activation points for this eclipse. Now, Capricorns. This eclipse is in your 9th house of higher learning, travel, philosophy, publishing. So what's being released? Intellectual perfectionism, over-analyzing belief systems, anxiety about being right, critical approach to learning and teaching. So if you're Capricorn rising, belief systems, educational pursuits, or philosophical frameworks reach a turning point. You release the need to have the correct worldview and embrace the mastery of not knowing. Or you stop studying to prove you're smart and start learning because it feeds your soul. For example, you drop out of a degree program that was about prestige rather than passion. Or you release a rigid philosophical framework that's been limiting your ability to experience wonder and awe. If you're a Capricorn sun, your identity releases intellectual authority as a security blanket. You embrace being the student of life, forever learning. If you're Capricorn moon, this is about emotional release around needing to understand everything. You find peace in mystery and learn to trust what you feel not just what you know. So, as a Capricorn rising, this eclipse in your ninth house at 12 degrees Virgo is right, it's there. So if your ruling planet is Saturn, the planet of structure and foundation, and his natal placement determines how this eclipse reshapes the very framework you've built your life on. So if your natal Saturn is at 8 to 18 degrees of any mutable sign, like Virgo, Pisces, Gemini, or Sagittarius, the ninth house restructures your very foundations. The philosophical framework you've built your life on is being tested. And what doesn't hold up is being removed. Saturn doesn't tear things down for fun. He tears down what was poorly built so you can rebuild with integrity. If your natal Saturn is at 8 to 18 degrees of earth or water signs like Taurus, Capricorn, Cancer, or Scorpio, the restructuring of beliefs happens with more stability and grounding. You don't lose your footing while the world view shifts. The ground stays solid beneath you even as the intellectual and spiritual landscape transforms. Go and check the personal activation calendars on Ivy Astrology to see your exact personal activation points for this eclipse. Aquarius. For you, this eclipse is in your 8th house of shared resources, intimacy, transformation, and power. So what's being released for you? Well, perfectionist control of shared finances, over-analyzing intimate relationships, anxiety about vulnerability, critical approach to power dynamics. So if you're an Aquarius rising, shared financial arrangements, intimate relationships, or power dynamics reach a breaking point. You release the need to control, join finances down to the penny. You stop analyzing your partner's psychology and start experiencing genuine intimacy through vulnerability. For example, you renegotiate a financial partnership that's been creating anxiety, or you finally let your guard down in an intimate relationship, releasing the need to have the emotional upper hand. If you're an Aquarius sun, your identity releases its armor around vulnerability. You discover that true power comes from openness, not control. And if you're an Aquarius moon, this is about deep emotional release around trust and intimacy. You stop keeping emotional spreadsheets and let love be messy, real, and uncontrollable. So as an Aquarius rising, this eclipse falls in your 8th house of shared resources, deep transformation, intimacy, and psychological rebirth. Your ruling planets are Saturn, traditionally, and Uranus, your modern ruling planet, and their natural placements determine the nature and speed of this transformation. So if your natal Uranus is at 8 to 18 degrees of any mutable sign like Virgo, Pisces, Gemini, or Sagittarius, the 8th house transformation is sudden and liberating. Shared financial arrangements, intimate power dynamics, or psychological patterns you thought were permanent suddenly break open. Uranus doesn't do gradual. This is the lightning bolt that cracks the old structure so light can pour in. If your natal Saturn or Uranus is at 8 to 18 degrees of earth or water signs like Taurus, Capricorn, Cancer, or Scorpio, The transformation unfolds with more stability and less shock. Deep changes still happen, but they arrive with enough structure that they can that you can process and integrate them without feeling like the rug was pulled out from under you. Go and check the personal activation calendars on ivastrology.com to see your exact personal activation points for this eclipse. Pisces, this eclipse is in your 7th house of partnership, marriage, one-on-one relationships. So what's being released for you? Well, perfectionist expectations of partners, over analyzing relationships, critical approach to commitment, anxiety about not finding the one. So if you're a Pisces rising, a partnership, marriage, or significant one-on-one relationship reaches a culmination. You release the fantasy of the perfect partner and either deepen with the real imperfect human in front of you, or release a relationship that can never live up to the critical standard you've been holding. For example, you stop keeping a mental list of your partner's flaws and start appreciating their whole imperfect humanity. Or you end a relationship where you've been more therapist than partner, releasing the need to fix someone before you can love them. If you're a Pisces sun, your identity releases its definition through partnership. You discover who you are alone before defining yourself through another. And if you're a Pisces moon, this is about emotional release around partnership dependency. You find emotional wholeness within, making any future partnership a choice rather than a need. So, as a Pisces rising, this eclipse falls in your 7th house of partnership, marriage, and committed relationship. The eclipse at 12 degrees 41 minutes Virgo directly opposes Pisces. The sun at 12 degrees 41 minutes Pisces sits in your 1st house of self, while the eclipse blood moon illuminates your 7th house of the other. So your ruling planets are Jupiter, traditionally, and Neptune, the modern ruling planet. And this opposition makes the partnership arena the most activated area of your life during this eclipse window. So alert for your sign, Pisces rising with an ascendant between 8 to 18 degrees are receiving a direct opposition from this blood moon to your identity axis. This eclipse illuminates a partnership, pulling hidden dynamics into the light with the full force of a lunar eclipse. This is deeply personal. The first 7th house axis is the me versus we axis, and the eclipse demands you see clearly what you've been ignoring in relationships, what you've been sacrificing, and what you've been tolerating, what you've been romanticizing. The blood moon won't let you look away. So if your natal Neptune or Jupiter is at 8 to 18 degrees of any mutable sign, Virgo, Pisces, Gemini, or Sagittarius, the partnership revelation involves spiritual illusion. You finally see a relationship or your role in it without the rose-colored glasses. Neptune fog lifts, and what's been hidden in the mist becomes undeniably visible. This can be painful if you've been clinging to a beautiful illusion, but it's ultimately liberating. You can't build real love on a foundation of fantasy. Go and check the personal activation calendars on ivastrology.com to see your exact personal activation points for this eclipse. And that is the total lunar eclipse in Virgo for all 12 rising, moon, or sun signs. I really hope this helped you understand what this blood moon is bringing up in your life, and more importantly, what it's asking you to release. Remember, this is the last total lunar eclipse until the end of 2028. Whatever door is closing right now, trust that it's closing for a reason. Let it go. The Pisces North Node is asking you to have faith in what comes next, even if you can't see it yet. And if you haven't already, think back to March 2007. That Metonic cycle connection is real, and the answers to what this eclipse means for you personally might be sitting in those memories. If you want to go deeper, and I mean truly personal, not just your sun sign, head over to ivastrology.com. The personal activation calendars will show you exactly which of your natal planets are being hit by this eclipse and what that activation means for your individual chart. The homepage daily transits will also help you track every time a planet crosses that 12-13 degrees point in the coming months, because eclipse degrees don't just fire once, they echo, and you will find and you will want to know when those echoes are coming. All the links are in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. If this video helped you, please hit that like button. It really does help the channel grow, and it helps other people find this content when they need it. Subscribe if you haven't already, so you don't miss the weekly March forecast. There is a lot more coming this month. Drop a comment and let me know what your rising sign and what came up for you during this eclipse season. I read every single comment, and I love hearing how these transits are showing up in your lives. Thank you again for being here. I will see you in the next one. Take care, everyone.